Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Police Systems and Practices, or just known as Systems and Practices in your rubric, but it's Police Systems and Practices. This is the introductory video for the fall of 2021. We're going to talk about what you need to do this semester to pass the course and the requirements and so forth and so on. But before we get started with this, I've got a couple things I want to go over with you. First I need to move out of the way. And let me back on up to, to start talking about the introductory quiz. And the reason I'm telling you this is because the majority of the questions from that quiz are going to come from this video that you're now watching. It's a 10-question multiple choice quiz. There is no time limit on it, but you must make a 100% on it to continue the course. Now, don't worry, you do have unlimited tries, and the questions don't change. There's only 10 questions. If you don't get 100, retake it. Go back and you see which ones you missed. Go back and find the right answer, and then retake it. You should be able to get it done twice. Though I can say I've had people that took 4 or 5 tries. Apparently, they just kind of rushed through things and did some guessing. Some of the questions are going to come from this, or most of the questions will come from this presentation, but a few of them will come from the APA plagiarism video that's found, if you're looking at this in Blackboard, right down there below where we're at. If you've seen the APA plagiarism video in the past, you don't need to re-watch it. It's the same video I've used for the last 5 years. Things haven't changed. So if you need a refresher, go ahead and re-watch it if you have problems with the exam. Excuse me, the quiz. Well, now I'm going to briefly talk about myself. If you don't know me, my name is Craig Foss. I'm the department chair for the Criminal Justice Department, a very small department as I'm the only full-time employee. I work very closely with the Police Academy staff, and they have 2 full-time employees, though right now one of those positions open. So there's actually 3 of us working out of the same office that are here full-time. We've got part-time instructors mainly in the Police Academy, and I've got a couple part-time instructors in criminal justice, adjunct instructors. As far as my background, I am a twice retired police officer, having retired from both the Galveston and the Dickinson police departments. I started my police career before many of you were thought of. There's a possibility some of your parents weren't even around. I started as my first law enforcement job. Started working as a store detective for Rice Food Market, a grocery store in Houston. I also went to work as an unpaid reserve deputy constable in 1977 in Harris County, where I went to a 72-hour police academy. And if you know anything about the length of police academy today, it's over 700 hours. So I was, we got the same training in a tenth the time. So, we were just really good. No, we just got really bad training. And the worst part is when I went to work, as a reserve deputy constable, they just said, okay, you're a deputy. You should know what to do. So things weren't that good. I also worked in law enforcement as a store detective for Target. And man, I caught a lot of shoplifters at Target. Shoplifters and employees stealing. Employees can steal a whole lot more than the regular shoplifters. But it was a fun job. It just didn't pay that well. My first full-time law enforcement job was a rather brief one. I worked for the Beaumont Police Department. The picture that's on your screen is me when I was a very, very young Beaumont police officer. Went to work for them in 1979. Prior to going to work for Beaumont Police Department, I had applied and actually tested in Galveston in 1978 and then in February of 79 and didn't get hired. So 79, after I didn't get picked on the list in Galveston, I went looking for a job, and I went all across Texas as far south as Laredo, Corpus, Victoria, and Lufkin, Richmond, Rosenberg, you name it. I went to all kinds of different places, and Beaumont was the first one that offered me a job. Shortly after Beaumont offered me a job when I was in the academy with them, Victoria Police called and offered me a job. But Beaumont paid better, and I was already working there, so I stayed in Beaumont. But then I went to work in Beaumont and didn't like it a lot. And as it would be, Galveston called me and offered me a job. And I said, yes, I want out of Beaumont. I didn't like the city. It wasn't the police department. I didn't like the city. So I ended up in Galveston and loved it. I can say that I am happy that I had my career with Galveston and learned a lot and enjoyed the work, enjoyed working with the people, still have reunions with them on a yearly basis. And, I still define myself by my career as a Galveston police officer more than anything. I mean, I was a Dickinson police officer and loved that. And I've been a college instructor, and I like the teaching part a whole lot. But, deep down, I feel, my allegiance to the Galveston Police Department because they kind of raised me. During that career, I worked as a patrol officer. I was transferred to the Identification Division, which is the crime scene unit, and spent the majority of my career, 18 of the 21 years I was with the police department. I worked in the 17 in the ID Division. I was a fingerprint examiner, worked a lot of crime scenes. It was at the time when crime was very high. We had extreme amount of violent crime. Kind of the mid 80s, it started weaning off by the time you hit the 90s. Even though crime has gone up in the last 2 years, violent crime has gone up a lot. It's still half of what it was back at that time, as far as crime rates. So, you're talking a lot more going on there, which was very educational. I also worked for a year as an auto theft detective, and I was a patrol sergeant on night shift. That was a fun job as a patrol sergeant on nights. I'm not a night person, though, as far as that goes. It was kind of hard on my body, hard on the family life, but I liked the work. It was fun. Had a good group of people working. As a patrol sergeant, you did the fun stuff. You didn't have to take the reports until someone, patrol officers messed up, and then it wasn't so fun. I was also a polygraph examiner. I can say that's the one area of my police career that I would not redo. I'm glad I did it, but, I'm glad I'm not a polygraph examiner anymore. It just wasn't my favorite. When I retired from the Galveston Police Department, the way that happened, I was working Mardi Gras back in 2001, and the officer that had worked with me as patrolman in the ID Division when I was a sergeant had gone up to Dickinson and was their ID officer. They ran their property room and so forth. And he was leaving to go to another department. I was eligible to retire, so I called Dickinson and put in an application, and they hired me. Now, I was hired mainly because of my forensic skills, but the majority of my job was actually being a fraud investigator. And that was really the only area of crime that's going up at the time. And that because of changing technologies. Just the kind of the birth and the popularization of the internet made fraud just kind of an easy way to steal from people. So it was interesting, and I really enjoyed it. We were a small detective division. We worked very closely together, and other than having to run the property room, which I didn't like, I really enjoyed the work in Dickinson. Well, as far as my educational career, when I got out of high school, I went to the University of Houston for a year, and I was going to do radio and television. Took some basic courses and never took any radio and television courses, and decided, well, maybe I wanted to be a lawyer. So I actually took a lot more political science classes or took some political science, and was going to major in that to go to law school. And then I decided, no, I don't want to do that. I want it to be a police officer. And while at U of H, I read about the law enforcement program at College of the Mainland, and had a house in Galveston, so I ended up going there. And while I was there, I ended up deciding to go to work as get a full-time job. I was kind of going through school rather slowly. So once I ended up back in Galveston as a police officer there, I returned to College of the Mainland. In 1982, I got my associate degree. took 7 years. So taking a little while getting it, don't worry, you're not the only one. So after completing my associate degree there, I went to the University of Houston in Clear Lake and was a criminology major. I much prefer criminal justice over criminology. They're very related fields. The criminology is more the theory behind why crime is committed as opposed to the nuts and bolts of how we prevent crime in law enforcement. So I prefer the criminal justice program, but it was close, so I went there. And unfortunately, in August of '83, while I was taking a couple classes at U of H in Clear Lake City, Hurricane Alicia struck Galveston Island and destroyed my house. So I was homeless. Actually, I spent a year living on a friend's couch, fold-out couch at an apartment. Also a young bachelor police officer. It was fine because that was just me without family, but it was still a little bit work to rebuild. So I decided I was going to drop out of college just for a semester while I rebuilt, and that lasted about 22 years. When I went to the Law Enforcement Management Institute, which is a 9-week program that takes place at Texas A&M, up at Texas Women's University up in Denton, and then the final 3 weeks are at Sam Houston State. One of the instructors was a professor from Midwestern State University, and he recruited people to the online BAAS program. And I said, oh, I probably ought to look into it. I told my dad I was going to continue my education when I told him I wanted to become a police officer. My daughter was in high school. I wanted to be able to tell her, hey, you need to get your degree. So kind of wanted to be the good example. And I went back and, I found I liked going to college a lot more as a mature adult than I did as a young adult who was more into going to the local pub, hanging out with friends than I was doing college work. And as such, once I completed the program, I decided to keep going and went to Sam Houston State in a master's degree program that was a weekend program where you went 1 weekend a month up to Sam Houston for Saturday and Sunday and went year-round for 2 years. It was at first very texting. I remember the first week just thinking I can't do this, and I read one of the textbook. I still don't know why he used it. It didn't make a lot of sense to me. And then, of course, this was a month later when we get back, and all the other students were saying that book didn't make sense. And the professor said, "Yeah, that book didn't make sense to me either, but the previous professor used it, so I think I'll get rid of it. Y'all complained enough, so I know it's time." So, with that said, complaining about things that you don't like, constructive criticism does help us to tweak our courses, and that kind of helped that. So once I had my master's, I decided I wanted to go ahead and teach, looking at retirement job, and went to work teaching at the University of Phoenix on a face-to-face program. And they were out for money; they weren't out for the students. They said otherwise. I'm sorry, that's the only place I've worked where I can't say that I felt like I had accomplished something. There were a few students that were really good students, and I wanted to take them aside and say, go to a different school. You're better than this program. I had more people cheating there. I never had a class, and I taught maybe 7 or 8 classes while I was there, where I didn't have at least one student that was plagiarizing, and their grading system was based all on research papers, very short research papers, and they were buying papers. I will say I did have one class. I had a class that only had 4 students in it. Nobody was cheating that. But the rest of them were, at least one, and one time it was half the class, and they were just buying papers. So anyway, that's beside the point. I was here at Alvin College recruiting for the Dickinson Police Department and the Academy, and they told me that the previous department chair was retiring, and I applied, not thinking I would get it, but I did. So it was one of those, I had to make a decision real quick, because they interviewed me, and they offered me the job the same day, and it was like, ooh. So I said, you know, I obviously told them I was interested in it. Went home, talked to my wife, and told her, you know, she said, hey, whichever decision you make, I'm happy with it. Okay. And I'm glad I did make the decision. I was kind of getting burned out on police work and needed a change. And I love the teaching part. I really like the admin part that goes with it, but it's kind of like I didn't like writing the police reports. I don't know too many people that do. It's just part of the job, so it's kind of an important thing. So now let's go ahead and get started, and you're going to introduce yourselves in the discussion board, so we'll get to know y'all that way. And then we'll go back to the what we've got going on in this class. So I'm going to go into the student mode in the class, so you'll see what you will as a student. And there will be some things that we're going to have to go back to the normal mode to show you. But you know, this is because we use what's called an adaptive release to release the material to you. And if you got to pass a quiz to get to the next chapter, so they won't be available. But we'll show you in just a minute. So when you get into Blackboard, and I'm not going to show you how to log into Blackboard. If you're watching this this video because I sent you a link, which I will right before class starts, and you don't know how to get into Blackboard, send me an email back and we'll get you into Blackboard. But once you get into Blackboard and into the class, this is the landing page. The announcements will be here. I will make announcements if we have schedule changes, or once a week I'll do a weekly update or new this week announcement that will be here. You'll get it by email. You'll also get it here. There'll be a link to my weekly update video and so forth. I got a link to Tutor Me. I don't know anything about it. It just showed up this semester. If you need tutoring, try it. One of y'all tries it, let me know what it is and how it works, because I find it interesting. Now over here on the to-do date, forget it. I'm not using due dates with the exception of the research paper in here because of that adaptive release system and the fact that if I use due dates and your test is due and you're late on something, it messes things up. So we don't use Blackboard's dates. So that is on the dashboard page. You've got over here on the left, you've got the links to the different tabs. Start here, which we'll get to in just a minute, has the syllabus, the course schedule, office hours, textbook information, so forth. Your meat and potatoes is right here in the weekly content. This is where you'll see what you need to do each and every week. A link to the exams, there will be 4 of them, and a link to the research paper. Then we've got some other areas. If you want to email another student, if you want to email the instructor, you can click on that. There's a second way to get to the discussion boards. You can also get to the discussion boards from each assignment that's due in the weekly content. We've got a link to My Grades, where you can look at your grades. Got a virtual meeting room where if you want to talk to me about your courses to take next semester and all, and you can't come to campus, or it's more convenient for you not to come to campus, I understand that. We'll do it through this virtual meeting room, and I'll be able to display your curriculum. Your degree plan on the screen, and we can talk about it that way. Then we've got some help screens, tech support, Blackboard chat, career coach, and a link to the library. And again, it's back here again. I had deleted all of them now. When I import them from the previous year, sometimes it duplicates things, and apparently I didn't delete that out. That's okay. It will be deleted, or you can just ignore it if it's not. So let's go ahead and go to the Start Here page. And on this page, you're going to find a link to the syllabus, which we'll look at in a minute. The course schedule. The course schedule should pretty much stay the same, but just kind of bleeding out the last announcements from last year. For the fall semester, we had a Hurricane Laura that shut the campus down, and so we had a little bit of a delay in due dates. Last semester we had the freeze, so we had another week delay. So there may be some changes. Normally the changes that affect the campus don't affect online classes, but sometimes they do with evacuations, with nobody having electricity. They can affect it. If there is a change, I will send out an announcement and you will know about the change. We have a link to the textbook. You can use the digital copy or buy a copy. They're available at the bookstore. It's the 9th edition. I believe they've come out with a 10th edition. They were trying to get me to update, but I wanted to try to keep it as cheap for the students as long as possible. And the bookstore has enough quantity to cover the class, so you should be good with that, or a digital version. And then here's my office hours. I normally will be in the office during those hours, but I teach some classes in the academy. I go to meetings and other things, so I may not be in the office. Don't drive to campus without checking with me first. I mean, obviously, if you're on the campus, stop by, but otherwise, if you're going to make a special trip, call me or email me and make sure I'm in the office that particular day. We can also set up meetings outside of the office hours, particularly with the online students. You may want to meet me at night, and we'll do that virtually on the, using the meeting room that I was just talking about. And I'm pretty much available as early as 6 a.m. and as late as 10 p.m. So maybe a 9 o'clock meeting. I need my sleep. I found the older I get, the earlier I wake up. I'm going to start waking up at midnight if I get too much older. Now we'll go back to the syllabus, and what we're going to do is we're going to spend just the time talking about what is different on this syllabus other than the standard language. I encourage you to read everything, but there is some standard language that is there for all courses. And this course is systems and practices. It is police systems and practices, and in that area of the criminal justice field. CRIJ 2328. It is an online class that you're allowed to work ahead. It is not a self-paced course. You've got deadlines that you must meet. Now, if you want to complete the entire course in 1 week, be my guest. You can do it with the exception of the follow-up post to the discussion boards. I tell you what, if you complete the entire course and you have an A average after 1 week and you don't do any of the follow-up posts, I probably won't hold it against you. I'll give you your A, but nobody's going to do that. So I would highly suggest you work a week ahead. So if something comes up and you need to catch up, you won't really be catching up. You were ahead. Now you're back on normal pace. So just kind of keep that in mind. Communicating with me, again, the best way is by email. You can call my office number. If I'm in the office, obviously I'll answer. If I'm not, you'll leave a message. It will send me an email and I'll call you back. If it goes direct to email and you email me and tell me what you want to talk about, I will have time to try to research the answer before I call you, and I'll be more ready to answer your questions. Now, the course description, this is a online-based 3-hour, 3-credit course which examines establishments, role, and functions of police in the democratic society. It will focus on the types of police agencies and organizational structure, police community interaction, police ethics, and the use of authority. And upon completion of this course, the learning outcomes, the student will describe the types of police agencies and explain the role of police in America with the context of the democratic society. Describe means and methods utilized to ensure police accountability. Explain the historical development of policing. Describe the selection process for police officers. And compare and contrast organizational structures, policies, strategies, and tactics employed to ensure police effectiveness, efficiency, and equity. And again, the book we just saw, you can look at the bookstore. You can buy it anywhere else. Just go ahead to new or used on Amazon or so forth, wherever, in print or digital version. Personally, I would prefer digital version because you can actually search for things. Again, I've got another copy of the course schedule. Again, subject should change, but I will let you know if it changes. Now, during this course, you will have 3 major exams and a final. The exams will all be 50 questions. The final will be 80. The final will have 50 questions covering new material since the 3rd exam, and 30 questions that come directly from the quizzes that were utilized for the first 3 exams. So you can use that. Now, for my exams, you are allowed to use your notes. You're allowed to use your textbook. your own personal notes. You're not allowed to use any documents prepared by anybody other than yourself or your textbooks. There is kind of an exception. As part of the discussion, the biggest bulk of the discussion assignments that you will have, you will be doing an exam review, and then you're going to compare your answers to at least 3 other answers from other students and talk about the difference, as long as their answers are different than yours. We'll spend more time on the discussion in the later weeks. So it's like the 3rd week where the follow-ups are due. I'll probably talk about it more in the weekly update in the 2nd week. When there's an answer that's different, you can take their answer and add it to your personal notes, because that's what the discussion's all about. Leave your answer. Yours may be right, theirs may be right, and you're not sure where the question comes from, so you can utilize theirs. What you cannot do, and what will make you fail this class, if you decide to go look the internet and do searches for answers, use any study sheets, practice tests. I had a student recently who was using Quizlets to cheat. I mean, there's no two way about it. She's searching Quizlets during the exam. She failed the class. Don't do that. That is cheating. And I'm going to say this a couple times. If you're caught cheating on an exam, you will fail the class. Okay, just make sure you hear it. If you're caught cheating on an exam, you will fail the class. If you're caught cheating on your research paper, you will fail the class. Cheating is not acceptable in this course, so just don't do it. In addition to the exams, you're going to have weekly quizzes or chapter quizzes over each chapter, and you'll have to pass that chapter quiz with a 70 or more before you can go to the next chapter. And you can also work at it till you get 100 on it. You've got an unlimited tries on the exams, so you can try 5 times if you want to get 100. If you make a 90 one time and then you take it again and make a 70, don't worry, you get the highest grade, so you keep your 90. I wonder why you went down instead of up, but keep taking it till you get 100, because the quizzes are worth the same amount as an exam, and we'll talk about that in just a second. Now, during this course, you're going to have a research paper to do, and the research paper will have 2 different options. It will be either a traditional research paper where you have a topic and you have to interview somebody who is an expert or more knowledgeable on that topic than most people, or you will have a patrol observation report where you ride with patrol. With a local law enforcement agency. You'll have to make arrangements with the agency and follow their rules, ride for at least a 4-hour shift. Most of them, students ride the whole shift because they're enjoying themselves. And then you'll write a paper about that agency, about your experience on patrol, and about the officer you rode with. You will also have to present the paper. Now, whether we're going to do it on campus or we're going to do it all by video is just kind of dependent on, quite frankly, on COVID. I would like to bring y'all to campus, but I also like the idea of doing them by video and having do a separate discussion where you ask questions. We'll figure that out as we get closer to the due dates for the presentations. Keep in mind that in order to pass this course, you have to have a research paper with an interview or a patrol observation where you, quite frankly, interview the officer you're riding with. It can be very brief, a little bit of information about them. If you do not submit that, you will not pass the class. If you do not present, either by video or in person, you will not pass the class. Now, there is a due date for the report, and it looks like it's September, if I put my glasses on, 23rd. If you turn it in on September 24th, then you'll have a 10-point reduction from whatever grade you got because it's late. If it is a week later, on September, October 1st, you'll be 2 weeks late, and you would get a 2-letter grade or 20-point reduction in your grade. So get it in on time. Just kind of keep that in mind. The discussion is going to be a kind of a two-part discussion. You'll have the exam review that you should print out and start filling out as you're watching the class videos, as you're reading this material in the textbook. You will post that. And you will also tell us what you found most interesting about the particular topic that week. You have to post first before you submit, or before you can view anybody else's answer. If you decide that, oh, I'm going to beat that, I'm going to just do a blank post so I can read everybody else's answer and I can make it easy. If you're doing that, that's cheating. And remember, you cannot pass this class if you're caught cheating. So you cannot submit, your discussion or submit a fake discussion so you can see somebody else's answer, or submit an empty discussion so you can take the exam. Either one of those is cheating and you'll fail the class. So do not do it. We'll talk more, like I said, in the weekly update about the discussion. I may create a separate video on the discussion. I think I've got one. I've just got to find it. So the grade summary. Each major exam is worth 15% of your grade. The final is worth 20%. Your research paper and presentation of it is 10%. Your quizzes are 15%, so they're the same as the major exam. So make 100 on it. That's like you got 100 on the exam. And then the participation, the discussion is worth 10% of your grade. Now, as far as attendance policy, there's no particular time that you have to do anything. Even if we do presentations on campus, we do have an orientation date that I'll talk about. If you can't make those dates, there are ways to make them up. Like video, you do a visual of a videotape presentation. If you can't make the orientation, which is done online, it's done from home, then you just call me and we'll just make sure everybody's on the same page. As far as course policy, the way we determine whether you're here or not is if you do what's due that week. And each week there'll be several things that are due. You may have a quiz, you may have the research paper, you may have an exam, you'll have a discussion at least every week, you'll have follow-up posted discussion. If you do everything that's due before that due date, you're counted as present. If you don't do anything that's due, you're absent. And if you're in between, if you did, well, I did the discussion, but I didn't take the quiz, then you're marked late. Now, if you're late 2 times, that's the same as one absence. And during the semester, you are allowed 3 absences. So let's say you miss, you don't do anything that was due for 3 classes, and then you don't take a quiz, so you're late. You now have 3.5 absences. Because you have more than 3 absences, you've now lost a letter grade off your final semester average. So if you had an A average in class, you get a B for the semester. You had a D average for the class, you failed the class. Now, if you, after that, you have 2 more weeks where you don't do the quiz, you get behind and you never quite catch up, you've now got another full absence. You're at 4.5 absences. So now if you've got an A average, you get a C for the course. And if you got a C, you failed the class. So it's real important to meet the deadline. And also keep in mind, just because you're marked absent because you didn't do the material doesn't mean that you're excused from that material. All assignments must be completed in order to pass the course. You got to take all the quizzes, you got to do all the research paper, you got to do the research paper, participate in all the discussions, and take all the quizzes. So that is a requirement to pass. Otherwise, you fail the course. Now the rest of the syllabus is standard material, so we're going to go back over here to the, and look at the weekly content and the research paper. Well, let's go to research paper first. There will be a video for y'all to watch on the research paper or patrol observation paper.
Well, hello everybody. In this video, I'm going to be talking about your research paper or patrol observation paper, whichever you choose for this.
So watch that video. You will have to take and make a 100 on the quiz, which is down here in the first week. So you're going to have to watch it and you'll know about it. Now, you don't have to necessarily determine what you're going to do, whether you're going to do a patrol observation or you're going to do the standard research paper. But the research paper, and the names that are here from last semester, I will pull those out. Actually, I'll pull those out while I'm on here. And you may want to select a topic in case you can't do the patrol observation, because it's only one student per topic. And so it's only one person can do each topic, so you don't erase somebody else's name. So you may want to select that in case you can't do the patrol observation. I would encourage you to do the patrol observation. If you're a police officer already, you can do a patrol observation, but it will have to be with an agency that you've never worked for. I've had several officers do patrol observation. I had a deputy sheriff ride with a DPS, trying to decide whether he wanted to go to work for DPS. I had a city officer ride with a different city once, and they actually found it interesting. I've ridden with two other agencies, just a patrol ride along here in Santa Fe where I live, and I was down in Corpus while one of my co-workers was went down a day early for a polygraph conference. A co-worker was taking the polygraph board exam, and since I didn't have anything else to do, I went on a ride along with Corpus Christi PD, which was very interesting. They do things a little bit different, but most things are pretty much the same. And then you'll submit your presentation. You'll learn more about the way to do things as we go along, but just realize you've got to watch that video and select your topic are the two important things. The exams will show up on this exam tab. They will not show up until you've done the required work. So, for instance, exam 1, you have to participate in chapter 1 through 4 discussions and made at least a 70 on chapters 1 through 4 quizzes and so forth. So they'll show up. We'll talk a little bit more about them during the weekly update videos. So let's get back to the weekly content. And here, if you scroll down, you will see what is due each week. Like this first week, the video you're watching, watch the weekly update video, which I will update, probably be a very brief one the first week since I'm really telling you most all the information. You'll watch this video, the APA video, if you haven't seen it before, or if you need a refresher. You'll take and pass the introductory quiz with at least a 100. You'll introduce yourself in the introduction discussion board. You watch the research paper video and take that quiz and make a 100, and select your research paper topic. I'll probably put a sheet out there for you to sign up for patrol observation as an alternative, listing the agency you think. Now, it's not who you're definitely riding with, but just kind of your thoughts on it, just so I can kind of get an idea of who thinks they might do the patrol observation. I hadn't done it yet, but if I have time, I will. Okay, so the first week, the first thing that's on here is our patrol our criminal justice online orientation. It will be on Tuesday. I believe that Tuesday is the 26th. I'm sorry, the 24th. I have to update that with the current date on that, and the times will be. I think I got it at 10. I have to make the 3 o'clock one too, but it will be in the weekly update video, and it will also be on Blackboard when it's updated. I apologize for not having it updated. I forgot that I'd changed the date and time. I made the 3 o'clock either 2 or 2:30 because I may have to pick my granddaughter up from school that day and pick her up at 4 o'clock and have to be able to be at her school at 4. So got to take care of the little ones. And again, you will get to it by clicking on the link here. You'll go to, it's not going to let me in because I'm using the mic, and so from here, you'd click join session. You'll allow it to use your mic and camera and so forth. But we'll get back to that. Let me back this up. You'll have a weekly update video. Here's the fall of last year. I did one weekly update video because all the classes were online that semester. And I did one to cover all of them. And then this introductory video will replace the one from the fall of 2020. The academic APA and plagiarism video is the same one that's been in place for quite a while. It hadn't changed. I've got a video on HonorLock. If you've never used HonorLock, watch it. You will need to use HonorLock on that introductory quiz, so we make sure that HonorLock works with your system and that you are able to your camera's working and all that other good stuff. The introduce yourself discussion. You'll have to create a thread before you can see it. The same with the other discussions. You need to create a thread. So you basically, not as much on the introduce yourself, it's just the way I have it set up. I don't want you to read other people's discussions before I want you to do your own work, I guess is a better way of putting it. In the introduce yourself, tell us about yourself, tell us what your major is, tell us your current jobs, your goals and careers. Tell us something interesting about your family, your pets, hobbies, and then you'll do follow-up posts to that to greet your other students. And then, let me get back, we've got the paraphrase exercise. There's a newspaper article. I want you to read it and then close it so you can't see it, and then basically summarize it. Put it in your own words. If you're not sure how to paraphrase, watch this video up here, APA plagiarism. At the end, it has a discussion on the paraphrasing. And then the last thing, here's a link that will be take you to the research paper tab. We've already talked about that. On each weekly update, or each weekly tab, I have an Ask Your Instructor discussion. That's an open one. I would suggest that you click on it when you first see it, hit the subscribe button. What this will do is this will send you an email anytime someone asks a question. One more time. There we go. This is where you ask a question about the class. Deadlines, you're not sure about something in a topic, you want something clarified. You do it here because then the other students can see the answer. And then other students may have the same question. You don't ask any questions about your grades or about your personal careers, your personal degree plan or anything of that. For those questions, send me an email. But anything that the rest of the students would find interesting, please ask it here. Been using them about 4 or 5 semesters, maybe a few more than that, and I don't think we've ever had more than 3 or 4, maybe 5 questions per class. So it's not going to inundate you with questions, with responses, but it will definitely be helpful at times. Okay, we go into week 2. You will see, or you will not see, because we're in the student mode, the quizzes and the video for chapter 1, because you have to make 100 on that introduction quiz first. The discussions here, and our discussion is going to be, let's see if it will load, a series of key terms that you will save this file and then put what you think is going to be on the exam for each one of them. And then you'll cut and paste this directly in to the discussion boards. I think I'm going to do another video on that. I may have already done one. I'll find it and submit it, and we'll talk about the follow-up post. So let me exit out of the preview and then go into week 2 and show you that the video will be there once you meet the minimum requirements. And here's the video, and then there's the quiz. You've got 30 minutes, 10 questions. You can retake it as many times as you need. And same with chapter 2, and then the follow-up post for all these others. Well, that's all I've got for you today. If you have any questions, please send me an email, or if you're watching this before the orientation, and I hope everybody does, ask me at the orientation, because other people may have the same question. And I'm looking forward to working with each and every one of you this year. just please, if you have any questions, let me know, and I will be talking to you at the orientation and weekly update videos that you will get each week.